Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Daily Sip. It's Monday already. I don't know where the weekend went, but I hope you all had a good weekend and enjoyed whatever you got up to and got out in some of that nice warm sun, which we've been missing for a while. And today we're going to be talking about the Access card and a few other projects actually around that. Most importantly, we're going to be talking with Martin Austin. And we were just saying before, it's pretty sure it's the first Martin I've had on the show. So it's another reason to celebrate for that. But most of all, thanks for joining me, Martin.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. I've watched a few of these and it's just been really, really informative. So it's good to be on.
Cool. Yeah, good to have you. And obviously we spoke, I really couldn't tell you exactly how long ago it was now.
No, I think it popped up in the Facebook memories. I think it was about a year ago because we were doing something with the Jeff Capes Foundation. I think there's probably people on here old enough to remember Jeff Capes.
Yeah.
I do from my childhood, and part of it was around mentoring young people, and that's where I flagged you up specifically because obviously, you're a role model for people with similar impairments and similar situations. So, yeah, it never panned out that we actually got the mentoring in place, which was unfortunate.
Yeah, but yeah, it was good to obviously we touched base sort of on the backgrounds we're both up to and all the rest of it. So there's a bit of a little background knowledge on my side, but I'm sure there's loads since we've spoke to catch up on for me personally. But obviously, as always, for the audience, it's great to meet different people with different stories. And I think what you're doing is really interesting and really important. But yeah, if you could kick us off with a bit of a bio summary to you and what you're up to, it'd be great.
Yeah, so I run a social enterprise called Nimbus. Going way back, I started my career with a user-led organisation, a small local ULO in Derby as a welfare rights advisor. So my job was to give benefits advice, help people complete the DLA forms and that kind of thing, but go through and represent them at appeal tribunals as well. That's a service that the charity still has, which is still, it's bigger than ever the way that the PIP decisions are being made. So we're there to help people get through and make sure they get the right level of benefit entitlement. Yeah. So a few years into that, we'd noticed this was around sort of 2001 when some new parts of the Disability Discrimination Act came into place. What we noticed as a charity, we were getting more and more demand from businesses asking for advice on how to meet disabled people's needs, which is great. But as a charity, we weren't set up to support businesses. We were set up to support disabled people.
Yeah.
So I took the role of looking into social enterprise structure and providing consultancy services and charging for them, because there was nothing in the funding that we had that said, go out and give free advice to businesses. Yeah. So that was where Nimbus came from. So your usual, and there's lots of great providers of it out there: disability equality training, consultancy, access auditing, policies, and that kind of thing. But it happened that we kind of fell into it by accident. We worked with a company called Live Nation, which is a massive worldwide music promoter. Where we're based in Derby, we're just down the road from the Download Festival.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it might surprise you to know I'm a heavy music metal fan.
I'm jealous of that beard. It's an awesome beard.
Yeah. So I'd already been there as a customer, and then we ended up doing some training with them. We developed a really good relationship. So at the end of each season, we kind of have a wash-up meeting. And one of the things that they flagged as being an issue and disabled people were flagging as an issue was this whole proving disability thing. So if you wanted the plus one and an essential companion, or if you wanted to access the accessible camping facilities or get access to a viewing platform or the accessible loos without queues, you had to send in information to show that you needed that to protect them from abuse. So every year I was having to send in my DLA letter, same as everybody else. One of the things that we realized was that DLA doesn't actually say anything about me as a person and my needs. And it's a massive burden on the team to be doing that, because they were running sort of 10 festivals every year, from Leeds, Reading, Creamfields, all the big festivals. So there's a lot of people going to these shows. And that was where we came up with the idea of saying, look, why isn't there just one central kind of register for disabled people that actually communicates in terms of the social model of disability? Why can't we just have something that says, my needs have been verified, so you've got the confidence in that as a provider, and now you need to go into customer service mode. You know that I need wheelchair access, so give me wheelchair access. You know I can't stand in queue for long. So going back, I'm an amputee. I lost my leg years ago, and I remember my first festival afterwards. It was a nightmare. It was horrible, and I sort of vowed never to go to a festival again, because I was stood in a queue for 3 hours, and I wore a prosthetic. Then I had to walk through a campsite to get to that queue, and things have come on so far since then. So we sort of said to them, well, why don't you just subcontract us to do this decision making? And they didn't want to. They didn't have any money for it.
Yeah.
Just sort of sat down with a pen and pencil and go, right, let's look, what should this look like if there's a kind of a universal proof? And that was where the access card came from. So we literally just drafted it up and knocked up a bit of a website and put it out there, and people started applying for it.
Brilliant. It's always the case, and it's kind of the way all projects and products and services come about is just through need, and also the randomness that you were down the road from Download and all those sort of other bits that happened. But so I guess really that it all makes sense as to the need that businesses want to do. Or to be fair, there's a legal obligation, right, to do certain things, but even others maybe go above and beyond. But there's that, how do you know someone is disabled or not disabled? So I see that the access card was sort of the way of sorting that out. So is it a physical card, like actually a card in the post?
So to start off with, yes, and this is just the sample one.
Yeah.
Just a physical card with different symbols on it that will kind of indicate what your access requirements are. So it's a photo card. But one of the things that we kind of realized quite quickly, we managed to get lots of different venues on board, but one of the main drives, and again, it was just timing, and we linked up with an organization called Attitude is Everything really early on.
Yeah.
Who do some absolutely, Suzanne and Gideon and Jacob, they could do some amazing work over there. And we didn't want to replicate what they were doing, but we wanted to work with them. And it just happened that they had just started addressing the issue of the inequality in accessible ticketing. So any disabled person that's ever bought a ticket for anything has to call a special line, wait on the phone for ages, and then send in your documents, wait a fortnight for somebody to process them, and then come back with a yay or nay. So there's no add to basket, check out. So what we realized was that we could integrate the system directly into ticketing systems. So now that's integrated directly into a few. So if you've got the +1 on there, you can add a free ticket. If you've got the wheelchair symbol for level access, it will then unlock the wheelchair accessible seating options for you. Because the biggest problem, the main one a few years ago, was an Ed Sheeran concert where they accidentally publicised the accessible sales alongside the general sales.
Right.
General sales sold out in 2 minutes, and everyone went on and booked the accessible seats because they're just desperate for a ticket.
Yeah. So
it's just protecting finite resources for the people that need them most.
Yeah.
And it's a case of horses for courses. I'd never expect that anybody has to prove that they have access requirements to be able to get into a supermarket. Although COVID has seen that change massively. The second you've got a queue for half an hour to get into a supermarket, the sooner you're going to be saying, I can't do this now that I've lost that level of independence that I used to have.
Yeah. Well, and the home, because a couple of personal experiences to share with you was the buying tickets for gigs, football, like live events really was, and still has challenges, but was really, really difficult for all the reasons you've just said, to just sort of mirror him back, really. Yeah, it was absolute difficulty for all the reasons you've talked about. And then, yeah, with COVID and supermarkets, the other one is home delivery. Like when you're shielding, there was this whole chaos about how do you know that the person has a disability, and how does the person with a disability flag that they are shielding and they're not even allowed to go to the supermarket to get that priority of home delivery. It's been a nightmare.
I mean, we had another layer of feedback on that. So you've got people that are shielding, but you've also you've got this vulnerable list that the government's pulled up. So you've got people that are vulnerable to the disease, but you've got people that then become vulnerable to the infrastructures that come because of the disease. So best example, some of my friends in Derby, a visually impaired married couple who have always used internet shopping. They're not vulnerable to the virus, but the second that everybody chooses to use internet shopping as a choice, they're put at the back of the queue. And trying to get into the supermarkets has been a big bit of work we've been trying to do. We're still not there, but nothing's changing. This situation is going to stay with us for a while, so I think we've still got some opportunities to work with them.
Yeah, as always, where there's a problem, there is an opportunity, and it might not happen in an hour or a day or a week, but if you chip away, eventually there are ways of getting it sorted. So just bringing it back to a disabled person that wants to get an access card, what does that process look like?
So it's an online application. Obviously, we can do telephone and paper apps where people prefer, but the quickest way to do it is an online application. So we'll ask a few questions about impairment and nature of need. But then more importantly, we go on to what barriers that then creates. So tell us about, if you've got difficulty with standing and queuing related to impairment, then we can allocate that symbol. And then we just look for a certain amount of supporting information to back that up. So we are an evidence-based system. Sometimes people don't like that, but the fact is that's how we operate.
Well, I think that's important. So you don't get people that don't need it pretending they need it and getting the card, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, you've got to look at what the benefits of having the card are, as opposed to, we charge £15 for 3 years. It makes us the cheapest of this type on the market.
Not a lot, is it?
No, but if you've got that +1 symbol on there, or even a +2, we do a +2 symbol.
A trip to the cinema pays it, right?
Well, a trip to Glastonbury will see you all right, because
they'll give you've got a sixth sense here, Martin, because Chris literally just said, "Does Glastonbury utilise the access card?"
Yeah, so, Glastonbury were one of the very first festivals we got on board. So you'll see. You can probably go to Glastonbury's pages now. And when in the access information, and this is the important thing, you've got a choice. You can either go through their own registration process and send all of the documents to them, or you can just give them your access card number.
Yeah.
So our idea is everywhere's got to have a free way of doing this. So anywhere you go, you should be able to register for free. But our mission is to say, register with us for once, and then you don't have to send off that sensitive information everywhere you go.
Every
just
time. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. So I was sort of slight tangent, obviously, around Glastonbury, but actually it's still the same part of the process, isn't it? That it's, okay, you have to fill out a form, you have to provide some evidence, but you do it once, you pay for 3 years, and then you don't have to do it at Glastonbury and all the other places that you're partnered with. We'll come on to that a bit later, I think, in terms of how you partner and who you partner with. But keeping to that thing. So a couple of examples of the evidence, just to give people a flavour, what kind of things are suitable?
So there's obviously DLA and PIP. We'd make sure that the rates of the award correlate with the information that's in the application. And I think the big thing with our scheme is that we're not reliant on them. We've got a team of disabled people who are experts in what they do. So we can take other information into account. So it might be We run Disabled Children's Register in Croydon. So if you're a disabled child in Croydon, you can have a free access card. But obviously not all of them are in receipt of PIP. So we might take a special educational needs statement into account, an enhanced care plan, anything, OT assessments. All we're looking for is this golden thread is, one, you meet the definition of being a disabled person under the Equality Act. So if it's a broken leg, don't come to us, go to the venue directly. Two, it has a significant impact on your day-to-day activities. So if you prefer to have somebody with you because they can go to the bar instead of you, that we're not going to give you a +1 for that. You've got to have a significant amount of support. And then the third is that we've got the information to show that thread across.
Yeah.
So it's not a tick box PLA stamp post.
Yeah, I was going to say, I appreciate there's not infinite, but there's a lot of ways that someone could evidence it. But that 3 points you've just made, that's very clear as to why you do what you do and what it is. So no, that's great. Cool. So I presume the 15 quid for 3 years, that's then renewed every 3 years, right? Yeah.
What we do, we will separate out whether our decision is a permanent decision or a temporary one.
Yeah, like for my condition, there's no. It's a known fact. I'm not going to be suddenly walking around. I mean, obviously, barring all sorts of crazy other miracles, but essentially, it's not like that likely, which is great because there are benefits that are constantly retested, and yet the person's not really going to change.
Exactly. But then you've also got other situations where people may change with the intervention of surgery or counselling or age. People can change over time. Conditions can change over time. So for those with permanent need, they will just renew £15, get a new card. They're reinvesting in the backroom work that we do to go out and add value to it. And then for everybody else, they just submit a new application. Yeah, brilliant. A couple of things on the comments. Mark said, "Hey, Martin and Martin, I think you're with an I, aren't you?" I'm with an I, and Mark should know better. Hi, Mark. And Nikki said, "This sounds awesome. And how secure is the information you hold on individuals?" Which I think, more recent years has become a very hot topic. Yeah, it's incredibly secure. I mean, I've got to admit, I'm not a techie, but the development that we've done to allow the integration into ticketing systems means that we have to take advantage of all of the latest internet security. So I'm not even going to try and get into the terminology, but it is massively secure. So when you do actually link your details with another provider, you're only ever going to share what's on the face of the card. So it'll only be your name and the symbols. So everything else at the back of that is completely private to us. Nothing's ever shared beyond that. Yeah, that's great to know. Because I know, sort of looping back to the conversation we had about the supermarkets and lockdown and shielding and vulnerable people, etc. I mean, there's so much came out of that, but a few people were calling for something very much like what you do, but there was that worry about who should I, because I think that the government had a list. So I added my details to a government website, and then weeks later I got a letter from the doctor that was sort of ambiguous about whether I was shielding or not, but I never heard from a supermarket. So it was like the official safe, if you like, space was the government, but there was no benefit from that. So I know that with the supermarkets, we'll come on that a bit later as well, but I guess it is that pretty difficult of if you own the data, you're open to that what do you do with the data, right? But I'm sure you've got all policies and assurances on not selling it and reusing it, right? Yeah, absolutely. And the only way it is ever shared, basically, if you call Ticketmaster and you've got an access card and you say, "Look me up on the system," they won't be able to find you.
Yeah.
So it's only when you share your first name, your surname, and your card number, and for us, that is the act of consent for them to then see what's on the face of the card.
Yeah.
Nothing beyond that, and it's always done at your consent.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's one of the reasons why I think, we often get said this should be run by government, and I'm kind of the mind that I think this should be something that is owned and operated by disabled people for disabled people.
Agreed. Yeah.
Because it's only us that have got the genuine experience and the the understanding of how this kind of data should be treated. I mean, one of the things that we do have in the privacy notifications is that we will actively use global data. So one of the things that we do is say to businesses, look, there are this many people that require level access that are interested in eating out. So there's the business lever for you to do more to increase level access at restaurants. Going back to our charity days, it was always a challenge evidencing need for something in terms of big data, because all you had was 5-year-old census data.
Yeah.
Whether people were frail and vulnerable or something like that. So marketing intelligence is absolutely key to what we do, but we will never, ever, ever sell data. If we work with a third-party provider, we'll give you the opportunity to link your data to them, but never ever the other way around.
Yeah. No, it's really, really, really important to make that. I think for me it was a base assumption, but I know that some people, like you hear about Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, and they just start to hear of all those stories. So I guess it's a bit tangential, it's like general worrisome point, but basically Twitter got hacked a couple of weeks ago, right? So but that doesn't mean that we don't do all of this online world. So I guess it's just that perspective, that like what you're doing is really, really important. There's a need. It solves a lot of issues, and the only risk is like any multinational brand has, but you've got all the latest cutting edge security thing around it anyway.
Yeah, I think it's about what data we store as well, because we don't need to store lots and lots of medical information, because the only bit of information we're interested in, again, you tell yourself, mine, I need to know that you're a wheelchair user, you need level access, and you're likely to need support from another person. And that your needs are permanent. Beyond that, besides updating a photo every now and then and changing your address, there's very little more we need than that. That's the way that we built the system. It was just to literally boil everything down into what was practical and meaningful for disabled people on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's good. So obviously, like data privacy stuff ticked really there. And thanks, Nikki, for the question. Is there anything else? We can come back again to it anyway if you think of something later. But before we move on to the business side, working with third parties, is there anything else you want to mention for disabled people?
No, I don't think so. I think the only thing that we've not really, no, we'll probably cycle around again.
I was going to say we'll come back if we need to. But so I mean, like you mentioned, starting out with Download Festival, Live Nation, and all that. But like, as you've also just mentioned, that it could benefit supermarkets, it could benefit, and obviously, as an absolute core mission, it all benefits disabled consumers. But it's applicable across the economy, really, isn't it? So how is it that you've gone about from the beginning up to now, in working and engaging with third parties?
So we've kind of gone down the path of least resistance. So because it's so applicable to live music and entertainment, that's where we've concentrated our efforts. I talked a little bit about having this market intelligence. That's great when you're at 1 million users. When you're at 5,000,
how many people have got the access card, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. When you're at 5,000 users, it doesn't really mean a great deal, and it's not going to give a lot of leverage into large high street stores.
It's data, not big data kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So to start with, it was literally just going through every music venue that we could find, saying, "Will you accept it? Will you meet these customers' needs?" And that's been the way that it's grown over the years. There's still a lot of work that Attitude's Everything doing around the accessible ticketing situation, because that's still far from fixed. But we're on the right track. So yeah, generally it was just getting listings from businesses, and the ask of businesses is, tell us how you'll meet these needs associated with each symbol, and then give the card holder assurance that when they turn up and show their card, they'll have those needs met. So whether it's in registering for tickets at a theatre or visiting Buckingham Palace, you've got that assurance of that's going to happen. What happened after that was kind of unexpected. I wanted it to happen, but we never really quite had a vehicle. So a couple of years ago, we set up a Facebook group, a closed Facebook group of just access card holders. And this is where I'm really quite proud of the user-led part of it, because it's that feedback that we have with card holders there that inform what we do. And one of the things that we started realizing really quickly when that group was set up was that people were showing their card everywhere they went. So whether a business was signed up with us or not, they were showing the card.
That confidence of, look, that here's a card.
Yeah. Especially, over COVID as well. But I mean, I remember the first time somebody said they'd shown the card at Lidl because they couldn't stand in queue, and they'd opened a new till for them. I was like, that's a relationship that we can't really broker. I mean, maybe further down the line we can, but to go top down with that kind of policy is a massive undertaking. But for somebody to just in the moment have their needs met was really, really good. So what we created was our named and famed category. So where somebody's had success at a venue, we'll list them as being named and famed. And then all of a sudden we were getting these listings pop up from Paris, Vienna, New York, Chicago, because people are using it everywhere. And again, I think it's the beauty of having something that's pictorial. Is it doesn't screen disability. We made a conscious decision earlier on to make it about access and not about disability, which some people have their own thoughts on which is best. But people use it and they get the needs met. We can't guarantee it. We've had people have shocking experiences when they've shown the card, because people have just refused to make a reasonable adjustment. That would have happened with or without a card.
It's not the card's fault, and it wasn't officially embedded in the company's policy. But it's a shame that the reaction with or without the card, there have been these negative experiences for people.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we've kind of developed off of the side of it, is giving customers tools to be able to raise these issues with the providers. We'll celebrate when somebody's good, but we also need to work with card holders to be able to address issues where they're bad and hopefully rectify them for the next person. I think we've just taken a lot of what a small local ULO looks like and created it as a national membership scheme, really. It's interesting. There's sort of lots of similar but different approaches. Obviously, you said you've seen some of the Daily Sib, and there's like Gavin at Neatbox, where you've got the customer service app to connect disabled people with the business through sort of, I'm coming tomorrow, this is the assistance I'll need, and then the business can then be ready to provide that assistance the next day. You just said about the sort of ULO, but nationwide. I mean, did you see George Baker talk about the Disability Union? I did.
So, none of these are the same as what you're doing. They're all different and complementary as well, really.
You've hit on the key point there. So we've spoken to Gavin, and I think going back to the pros and cons of ULOs back in the day when there was the dial network were incredibly competitive. They were all quite protectionist, and I think moving forwards, we need to embrace the differences in what we do and find out where we can work together.
Definitely.
So, that's why we've said to many providers, we're happy to make the link into the access card open source, so that if somebody wants to link their access card account with Neatbox, then that can be possible. Or if they want to link it with a union, or one of the things that we don't offer, consciously have chosen not to offer, is a review system on the access card website. We don't want to get into mission drift, but that gives us an amazing opportunity to work with other organizations that do offer review services.
Like access rating.
Yeah, like access rating. We've spoken to Mark about that. We've spoken to you and Sky. We've spoken to a couple of others. 3D tours. We don't want to offer 3D tours, but if we can all bring them in to add value to the customer journey and link everybody together, because one of the central tenets of inclusion and equality is choice. The access card won't be for everybody, but if we can point them towards a different solution that makes sense for them, then that's great. But we can't do that if we all work in silos and we're all protectionist of what we do.
Yeah. So speak of the devil, Gavin, we love access card. It would be so easy to add to our platform if someone was an access card user before they arrived. Very keen to do this. So yeah, straight there. That's obviously speaking to your point. Nikki is saying, could this be used to help disabled people during the pandemic, especially if we have another lockdown? I mean, we've sort of meandered around the supermarket stuff, but I mean, and I mentioned very sort of flippantly, or not flippantly, but briefly, the point about the mask exemption. But from your side, what other ways, including that, could the access card support during another lockdown?
Well, this is where the named and famed side of it comes in as well. So people are showing their cards and they are having success at supermarkets, not universal success. So we'll get one person say, "Great, I used it at Sainsbury's, Whitstable, got all my needs met. The staff were fantastic." And then the next comment will be, "Well, I used mine at Sainsbury's, Norwich, and they told me to get to the back of the queue and I had to go home." At the same time, we're trying to collate this feedback as evidence and go back to these venues and go, "Look, we have a solution here for you. It doesn't cost you anything." I mean, what we charge businesses for this is free to list with us. It's free to link in with the software, but trying to offer a solution to those kind of organizations, even though we don't charge for it, there are costs internally that they have to absorb. And everyone's just so busy right now, which is the irony. That's what's causing the problem. There's a solution there. So it's down to the individual to assert their rights. So in some respects, we've seen the music industry improve, we've seen other things improve, but in some respects, we're still where we were when the DDA came in 95.
Yeah. Which, as we said earlier, is the problem still is the opportunity to solve it, and I'm sure we'll chip away and everything. So it's interesting to know. Mark said we are really looking forward to working with Martin with the eye, and access card is a brilliant concept. And then another question a little while ago from Chris: have you thought about ticketing? More importantly, unwanted tickets sold by the community to the community, obviously at face value plus admin fee for access card.
We've seen some transactions happen on the Facebook group. So literally, I can't make this show tonight. I want it to go to somebody that needs it. So again, that's where the community side comes in. I think, again, it's avoiding mission drift. We need to stick to what we do, which is communicating access requirements. I don't think we're looking to set up a ticketing company, but where ticketing companies have that function, then that's what we're developing with them to be able to allow, if you've got the wheelchair symbol, you can sell that ticket to another customer with the wheelchair symbol, say.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably various bits that aren't being done within the whole sort of puzzle that you or some of the other ones we've talked about could do. But I think until there's that real traction and real growth and real sustainability on all levels, it's absolutely. I always come back to what Rob Smith said from Access Hands. Like they do adaptions and products for hand gripping, and they could go into all sorts of tangents and other verticals and everything. But like, there's plenty to do within that one area. Like for you, or your core value, your core mission, there's still loads to do within that anyway. But then, as you also said, that collaboration and partnership is powerful, because then all the bits get done, but no one's stretching themselves too thin in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been in this game, 20 years, and I've seen user-led organizations, social enterprises, startups, get a little bit of traction and then see something else shiny and run off, and then the original thing that was small and beautiful gets forgotten.
Yeah.
We see it all the time. So, I'm always conscious to just kind of stick to what we do, buy in partnerships where we can, and add the value that way.
So I think probably the big thing I want to clarify with the third party and the partnerships, is there a cost to them to be involved at all?
So the way it works, and the best example I can give is one of the earlier ones. So we worked with a company called the Ticket Factory, who do all of the ticketing for the NEC group. Mm-hmm. So the arena, the National Exhibition Centre itself in Birmingham, and they've got a couple of arenas as well. And they were one of the first ticketing companies to come on board. So we did all of the integration with them. So you'd link your access card with your account once, be linked for 3 years, and it'll unlock all of your access requirements, it worked great. But the earliest problem we found was it then meant that you couldn't buy accessible seating online unless you had an access card, which meant that you then had to pay £15 for the courtesy of being able to book an access ticket. So what we agreed with them was that they had to have a free way of doing it. But what they chose to do was subcontract us to run their free system as well.
Right.
So if you don't want an access card and you register at the Ticket Factory, you go through the exact same process, but you'll be given a Ticket Factory registration number. Yeah. And then at the end of that, if you choose to upgrade to an access card, you can do. But until that point, it's completely free and you'll have all of your needs met.
Yeah.
Everything else to do with the system is free of charge. So you can submit a listing with us free of charge. You can have access to our API code free of charge. There's a license agreement about using it responsibly, obviously. But no, we don't charge, because that's one of the barriers. Is if we charge high, we put service providers off, and we end up stopping adding value for our customers.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to put the service providers off, because it's counterintuitive to the problem you're solving. I suppose, because we talk quite a lot on the show around the sort of, you say it's a social enterprise, but the funding, whether it's charity, social enterprise, limited company, they're just models of how to run organizations. But one way or another, it needs to be financially sustainable. So I suppose partly I'm just interested how the financial sustainability comes. And I suppose the second, it's more of a general point, is that the businesses are going to make more money in the long run by having the purple pound and all those narratives that we now know very well. There is an argument they could and should pay something for you helping them reach a new customer base.
Yeah, potentially. We actually save them costs, and they fund that. And again, it's down to choice. So what we want to do is make the access card as attractive as possible to hopefully see people get more value out of it. Yeah. We could, and it's one of the things that's popped up a few times. We could get £5 million tomorrow. Not could, but in theory, someone give us £5 million tomorrow, and we give every single person in the country a card. The scheme will fold in 3 years. it's not sustainable.
Sure.
Taking small payments from customers that see the value in it
Yes.
makes a lot more sense. And if anything stood true, COVID has been the biggest example of that of all, because as soon as the lockdown started, our new applications went down to zero. All of the partners that we work with have gone dark. All of the theatres, all of the arenas have gone dark. So our entire income was based on renewals of people renewing their cards, and it's that's seen us through it. I mean, since then we've just gone online with on board, not online, with the Merlin Entertainment Group. So Alton Towers, Thorpe Park, Chessington.
Okay, cool.
We've seen a massive uptick in sales because of that now, which is great as those things are opening. And we're expecting live music and entertainment to start coming back online in autumn, with a view to going live in the new year.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's been, with the COVID on a business level, it's been a challenge across the board. But I can see how that's directly impacted you. I mean, you mentioned Nimbus. So, are there some other services that you still, from that founding where you offered advice and everything? Is that still happening?
Yeah, so that's where we do charge the businesses. So where they want to train their staff, that's where we go in. We train the staff, and they pay for that. Access auditing, quality marks.
Yeah.
They pay for what they get and what they see value out of as well.
Yeah.
So it works nicely. And then any money that's left over at the end of the year gets donated back to the charity that I mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're looking at doing in coming years as we grow is creating smaller pots of funding that will be available to the membership for specialist equipment, or to businesses, or putting in accessible solutions, or for small charity groups. So at the back of our mind, we've got this: how do we keep reinvesting into the social purpose, which is facilitating independent living?
Yeah, and obviously most of all, that there's that whoever's working can have a salary, because we all need to have a house and food. And, I think that's where some people get a bit crazy about it has to be charity, or, I mean, social models got a lot more of that win-win in the middle, really. But when there's that sort of, well, why do you need to make money from it? Well, it's like, well, there's the tech stuff you've talked about. I'm sure that has a cost, but people are working. Yeah. No. That must be a challenge. But yeah, it kind of makes sense. The fact you've got that consultancy arm must help to keep it sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also important to say we've never actually had any funding for this. So the entire scheme was developed through reinvested income. So it was never a case of going out and getting a pot of funding to buy a printer, or to write a database, or to do the coding. It's all been generated through income, because we were a social enterprise before this. Our mission has always been to reinvest for the social purpose.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So, was there anything else about Access Card or Nimbus, or anything in general you wanted to mention?
I think the next thing for us really is looking at international markets. So we've got some interest in Germany and Spain, and it looks like, touch wood, we should be launching in New Zealand shortly as well.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that's on a kind of a social franchising model, so we can give the infrastructure to organizations of disabled people in those localities and run a scheme that fits their demographics, their politics, their culture.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we did that a bit on Disability Horizons. We sort of had young, early 20-year-olds that wanted to create a magazine, create content, grow it, and then maybe not bring in revenues from sort of a magazine platform model, business model. But it was not so much about whether it had the revenue. It was purely just to give, as Horizons always said, it's to give disabled people a voice. So and that was interesting, because there were in countries where we couldn't speak the language, there was then that leap of faith about, because we're talking about articles as well. The access card is quite a specific offering, but yeah, there was sort of how much to let people crack on in your brand name and how much to sort of check certain levels of quality and have certain levels of control for good reasons. I think with you guys, it's a different thing because it's a more binary sort of model, isn't it?
It is. I mean, any partnership has its challenges. It's like a marriage. Not every relationship's going to be perfect all the time, and sometimes you've got to work hard. I think we've got a good partner in New Zealand. The ones in Germany are particularly interesting as well. Spain's a little bit earlier on, but I think what we've got speaks across boundaries. People are using it everywhere, and if we can add to that on a local basis, then that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, it's interesting questions. It's quite a few times people have asked something as we're talking about it. But Ricardo put, thanks guys for the amazing discussion. Quick question: would access card work in those countries that already issue a disability card through Social Security, example Spain, that not give access to numerous benefits, discount, etc., for public services, but also for an increasing number of businesses that reach agreements with the Social Security?
Yeah, so what we're looking at with Germany, and I even believe it may be the same European card, is that disabled people are issued a card that lists what percentage of disabled you are,
right?
Bizarrely. But there's no kind of central database to actually integrate it into ticketing.
So it's a bit like we said with the government list and the supermarkets. Yeah,
absolutely. So we're looking at what we can do to translate that card into our card and our system to then integrate it beyond and make it meaningful. So essentially that card becomes an extra piece of evidence that we use in our decision making. But that's exactly what we're looking at, because these issues are the same with Spain. We're looking initially at access to football stadia, because same as over here, you've got a DLO, disability liaison officer, that will have access over or control over some tickets, and they're the only person that knows about it because there's no integration into the ticketing system. And there's no integration into a clear policy across all football grounds about what needs you require and how they're communicated from one club to another. So we're just replicating what we've done for different industries now.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because I get Ricardo's question. If there are maybe, because he said example Spain, I don't know whether there maybe are agreements being reached, as he inferred to, that governments then do work with businesses, and that could be a similar way. But I do think your point earlier about led by disabled people for disabled people means we're more kind of in charge of our own destiny in a way, because what if a new government came in and said, sorry Martin, go on.
Sorry, no, I jumped on you. Go on.
Just to say, what if the government changes in 3 years and they unravel the agreement with the businesses?
Yeah, I was just going to say that COVID list wouldn't have happened if there would have been a disabled person overseeing it, because they'd immediately have said, what about people that aren't vulnerable to the disease but are vulnerable to the situation? Yeah, and that's the thing, government guidance changes, government policies change. So, if we need to go against government guidance for a couple of years and just stick in our own furrow, then that's fine. But where we can work with government when policies and the wind are behind us, brilliant. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to announce some work that we're doing around tourism soon. It was put in cold storage when COVID started. But that's a perfect example of a policy and a strategy that can put the wind in our sails. Yeah,
no, interesting stuff. Well, I think we'll wind down. I think we've covered everything. Say, like, kind of next steps international, and I think Ricardo's question was really nice because it actually clarified another point there about the sort of why governments could or couldn't do it, etc. So yeah, it was a good one to touch upon. Was it accesscard.co.uk was the website?
.org. accesscard.org.uk.
.org.uk.
Yeah, so there's information on there, and obviously we're on all of the social media. And if anybody just wants to message us and see how it applies to them directly, feel free.
And I guess same for businesses that are interested can reach out the same way.
Yeah, businesses go to nimbusdisability.com and look at the access card pages on there. That's when we talk more specifically about how it relates to businesses.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Well, yeah, we'll both keep an eye on the threads. It's obviously on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and it gets a lot of views as the day goes on the replay. So yeah. I'll certainly keep an eye out. And if I know we're on Facebook, aren't we, Martin? So yeah, keep an eye.
Flag anything that needs looking at, and we'll get onto it.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thanks for today. I really enjoyed catching up. Really fascinating chat because it holds a lever, doesn't it? It can be a lever that solves a lot of headaches for disabled people, businesses, and government, to be honest.
Yeah, and one of the first things we said with Nimbus is we need to be a carrot and not a stick.
Yeah,
we're not there to threaten you with legal action. We're there to say, look, if you get this right, the access coordinator at Live Nation, just probably a great note to end on. She always said, build it and they'll come. Download was very small in terms of access. When I first went, there were probably 50 to 100 of us there. 3,000 people now. Build it and they will come. If you offer a service to disabled people and you talk to them, they will use it and they'll be back, and they'll be back in numbers. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well done, mate. I love it.
All right. Look after yourself. Stay safe.
All right, mate. Everyone, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Really interesting chat today. We're back tomorrow talking. It's all about sex and disability. I'm not sure I've had an interview. We've done loads on Disability Horizons about this topic, but I think it's the first overtly sex and disability related interview. So come and watch me blush lots tomorrow. But in the meantime, have a great day and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.